conservatives or libertarians are actually mean. They don't understand it. They think we're just mean. We don't care about people. And we don't think that about the left, about socialists. We just think they're foolish. They're ignorant. I don't think they're mean, but to them, they just can't understand it. Why don't you want to help these people? I do. I just understand that your policies are what's hurting them. And they can't figure that out because it requires them to think. And they don't want to think, they just want to feel. But anyway, any other questions? Yeah.
So go back to 2008. If they let the banks fail, what would the economy been like for a businessman or average citizen in November of 2008, December 2008? Like how bad would it have
Well,
been?
there's no way to know for sure because it didn't happen. But certainly, the economic contraction would have been more severe had the government let the market function. Just like it would have been more severe in 2001, 2002, had they had the same foresight. The question is, where would we be a year later? 2 years later? There's no question that there would be more short-term pain by letting companies fail, letting people lose jobs, letting real estate prices fall. All of that in the short run would be more painful, certainly for certain people. It would have been a lot more painful for the executives of AIG, the executives of all these brokerage firms that would have lost all their money. I don't know if anybody would have shed any tears for them, but it certainly would have been more painful for them. Yeah, and it would have been more painful for some government workers who lost their jobs and certain people who lost their retirement. People would have, but the reality is now they're going to be subjected to even more pain in the very near future than had we done the right thing. Because instead of getting out of the hole, we're still digging it deeper. So that when we stop digging, we're in a bigger hole to get out of. And that's what we have to do. The politicians kept saying, we had to do something. We had to do something. No, they didn't. They did enough. It was time to stop doing it and allowing the market to function. And a lot of these politicians said, well, we can't stick to our principles. We have to abandon capitalism to save it. That was what George Bush said. The problem was he abandoned it when he took his oath of office. When times are tough, that's when you have to grab your principles and hold on to them the tightest. We needed to embrace capitalism more than ever because it's only capitalism that can get us out of this. I mean, to think that capitalism works in good times, but in bad times we need socialism. Well, if socialism is so good in bad times, then why don't we just have it all the time? It just doesn't work. It's all nonsense. But it's politics because no politician wants to tell the voters, I'm not doing anything. They all want to say, I feel your pain and I am doing something to help you, even if what they're doing is hurting them.
You told us that we need to cut down consumption and start saving. Can you give us some practical advice on where should we put our savings, assuming that the market is going to collapse and everything? Where should we put it?
Well, that's a great question, and unfortunately, my answer is not going to help the U.S. economy. You see, right now, the government is pursuing policies that would make saving in this country a foolish pursuit. If I told somebody to put your money in the bank, I think that I couldn't say that in good conscience because A, you're getting no interest, and B, you're going to get wiped out to inflation. So unfortunately, anybody who wants to save their money now, I got to tell them to buy gold, to send their money to China and invest over there, And so none of this in the short run is helping the U.S. economy. Now, in the long run, it will help dramatically if our politicians finally do the right thing and make the U.S. economy conducive to savings and investments. Then my clients will be able to bring back all the money that they safely put offshore or that they protected in precious metals and invest in rebuilding this country. See, right now, if I told Americans to save their money here, their wealth would just be evaporated with everybody else's, and it wouldn't be any good. And that's how you know that we're doomed, because economies grow based on savings. They don't grow based on spending. Savings is where capital comes from. Capital is where investment comes from, it's where productivity comes from, it's where employment comes from. Savings are the key to everything. So in order for a capitalist economy to work, we need to have savings. But we have set up a situation where nobody is going to save. You would be an idiot if you saved money in this country. And in fact, anytime somebody tries to save money, the federal government panics and tries to stimulate us into spending. So we know we're doomed. Any questions?
I have a question. When was the last crisis in numbers times? 3 years was tried, and was unemployment 25%. How big you think unemployment will go if your solution will provide and how long it will take to get out?
Well, again, I don't know how, unemployment is already 17%, if you count, people who are working part-time and discouraged. So it's already almost at depression levels now. So I don't know how high it's going to go. I think it's going to keep getting worse if we continue to pursue the government stimulus plans and government jobs bills, and if we continue to take the Keynesian approach, it won't work. See, the Keynesian approach appeared to work in the past, but it really didn't. We just, postponed the pain. But we've squandered so much of our wealth that there's nothing left to squander. So the only way this Keynesian fix will work is if the Chinese and the Japanese and the rest of the world loan us the money. And we can see, look, there's problems all around the world now. The world can't afford to loan us all this money. So it's not going to work this time. But I don't know how high it's going to get. I do believe that if we did the right thing, if we employed my solutions, unemployment might spike up initially as well. But it won't stay there. The unemployed will find jobs far more rapidly if we employed my solutions. Because my solutions would deregulate the economy, make it easier and less expensive for people to go into business and employ people, and allow for capital to be accumulated so that entrepreneurs can have access to it. So, my solutions will work. They are not politically palatable, but they will work. And that's the interesting thing about my race. I mean, can I get elected president telling the truth? Because it's never been done. And will people vote for somebody who's telling them the truth and has solutions that will work, as opposed to solutions that will not work, but which feel good and sound good?
You were trying to buy Homer for 3 years and they haven't.
Yeah. I don't know. Look, I mean, our founding fathers really did not like democracy. They didn't think democracy worked. That's why they created this country to be a republic. I'm trying to prove our founding fathers wrong, that democracy can work. And, it's going to be tough, but we'll see if I can get elected.
A few years ago, when people were saying, or maybe a year ago, when people were saying that we're all Keynesians now. Because I'm not you and I'm not an economist, I went to Wikipedia and I looked up John Maynard Keynes. And what I saw was very different than what I was hearing on the radio. I mean, I read his description of how governments can promote economic stability, because in times of excess, they can fix the problems. They can fix the problems with infrastructure. They can fix the problems that only a government can fix. And then, in times of scarcity, they need to cut back. And it struck me that what the approach has been under a Republican administration and now under a Democratic administration is that it's pseudo-Keynesian. Because in the good times, when the money's rolling in, nobody fixes anything. Nobody's got to talk about stimulus.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we got it a little bit backwards. I mean, what Keynes was saying is that when the economy is doing poorly during the contraction, that the government can come to the rescue and run up deficits and stimulate the economy. Then, when the economy is doing well, when the economy recovers based on the government intervention, and during the good times, that's when the government would run surpluses and pay off the debts that had accumulated during the downtime. So the government was going to be counter-cyclical to the economy. So it was going to run surpluses when times were good and deficits when times were bad. Now, the whole process was flawed from the start anyway. But we never really followed it, because what we do is we run deficits in good times and then bigger deficits in bad times. So the debt is never paid off. Keynes would not have been in favor of that. All right, Keynes would have said that that was wrong. But the fact that in bad times, wanting government to increase spending is wrong. It's like saying that, that the Keynesians feel that somehow the rules of families don't apply to governments. They think that when you increase the scale, that somehow the laws change. Just like saying that gravity applies, on Earth, but it doesn't apply on the sun. Well, why? I mean, sure it applies. It's still mass. And so the laws of economics still works. I mean, if you're in trouble as an individual, if you have too much debt, you got to cut back. You don't spend more. And the same thing applies to the government. But Keynes said it didn't think it did. But I think Keynes was wrong, and I think the current application of Keynes' theories is also wrong.